The signal on 162.475 was a NOAA weather frequency, and on day 11 it should have been dead. Every National Weather Service transmitter in the Southern Appalachian Corridor had gone silent by day 6. I knew this because I'd been scanning them methodically every 4 hours since the morning the first evacuation orders dissolved into static, logging each dropout with the time, the frequency, and the estimated transmitter location in a water-damaged composition notebook I kept in my jacket's chest pocket. Station after station had fallen away in a pattern that moved roughly southwest to northeast, each disappearance representing a power failure, a site overrun, or both. By day 8, the entire band was clean. No tone alerts, no synthesized voice reading forecasts for counties that no longer had anyone listening. Just the hiss of an empty carrier, which is its own kind of silence. So when a pulse appeared on 162.475 at 3 in the morning on day 11, not voice, not a standard alert tone, just a rhythmic data burst repeating every 90 seconds. I sat up in the back of the pickup truck and held the handheld receiver close to my ear like it was something fragile. The truck was parked under a rusted hay barn about 40 feet off a Forest Service access road in Avery County, North Carolina. Elevation around 3,800 feet. The barn blocked sight lines from the road. The elevation gave me decent passive receive range, and the infected didn't climb well at night when the temperature dropped below 40. That last part wasn't science. It was 11 days of pattern recognition, which was the only science left. Now, the data burst was irregular in a way that told me it wasn't automated. NOAA weather radio transmitters send data in a rigid format. Specific area message encoding headers, the alert tone, then the synthesized voice product. This was different. The pulses varied in length, and there was a cadence to them that felt deliberate, almost manual, like someone keying a transmitter in a pattern. I listened for 6 full cycles, logging the durations by headlamp with the red filter on. The sequence wasn't Morse. It wasn't any standard signaling protocol I recognized, but it repeated cleanly, which meant whoever was sending it had power, had a functioning transmitter on a NOAA frequency, and had enough stability to maintain a regular broadcast cycle. That last part was what made me get out of the truck and spread the topo map across the tailgate. My name doesn't matter for the purpose of this, but my job does, because it's the reason I was still alive, and the reason I did what I did next, instead of the smart thing, which would have been to ignore the signal and keep driving north. I was a county communications maintenance supervisor for a 3-county region in western North Carolina. Not a dispatcher, not an engineer. I was the person who kept the physical radio infrastructure operational. The repeater sites, the tower equipment, the backup generators, the microwave links, the voter receivers, the consulates in the sheriff's offices and fire stations. When a mountaintop repeater went down during an ice storm at 2 in the morning, I was the one who drove up with a toolbox and a frequency counter and figured out whether it was the duplexer, the feed line, or a dead PA module. No, I'd been doing this for 14 years. I knew every relay site, every repeater cabinet, every antenna array, and every backup power system in the region by memory. And I knew some that weren't on any public infrastructure map. That's what made the signal so specific. I could estimate, based on signal strength and my elevation and the terrain between me and the likely transmitter locations, roughly where it was coming from. And the bearing I calculated pointed almost exactly at a ridgeline site I'd visited once, 7 years earlier, during a regional interoperability exercise, a site that officially belonged to no single agency. It was listed in one planning document I'd seen as a Type 3 Communications Relay Shelter, a designation I had encountered only twice in my career and had never fully understood. Or what I remembered about it was this: a small hardened structure on a ridgeline, maybe 12 by 20 feet, with a heavy antenna mast and what looked like a permanently installed equipment suite behind a steel door with a cipher lock. I had been brought there by a state emergency management coordinator who wanted to verify that the site's backup repeater could be patched into our county's VHF system during a disaster. We spent about 40 minutes there. I helped align a directional antenna. I saw the inside briefly. Racks of equipment, battery banks, a small diesel generator in an exterior enclosure, and a wall of laminated frequency charts and relay routing diagrams that I was told not to photograph. The coordinator said the site was part of a fallback relay network maintained for continuity of emergency communications if primary infrastructure failed simultaneously across multiple counties. He said it casually, like it was routine, but the door was 3-gauge steel and the lock was federal grade, and the battery bank could have powered the equipment for 2 weeks without the generator. I never went back. I never had a reason to. But I remembered where it was, and I remembered the access road, and I remembered the rough coordinates because I'd logged them in my personal site notebook, a habit I'd developed for every piece of communications infrastructure I ever touched. The signal on 162.475 was coming from that direction. Here is the part where a reasonable person would have noted the signal, marked it in the log, and then continued north toward the Tennessee line, where there were rumors, unconfirmed, radio fragment rumors, of a coordinated survivor zone near Johnson City. I had enough fuel for maybe 60 miles, enough food for 3 days, a Ruger pistol with 14 rounds, and a bolt-action rifle with 9. I had not spoken to another living person in 4 days, not since a brief encounter with 3 men at a gas station in Spruce Pine, who had offered to trade ammunition for my truck and whose eyes told me the trade was not optional. I'd left fast and driven logging roads for 2 days after that. But I didn't go north. I went toward the signal, not because I was brave or because I had some noble theory about what it meant. I went because I was a man who had spent 14 years maintaining the systems that let people talk to each other during emergencies, and those systems were all dead now, and here was one that wasn't. That need was not rational. It was professional, maybe, or maybe something less dignified. Maybe it was just that the idea of a functioning transmitter in a dead network felt like finding a heartbeat in a body you'd already pronounced. I folded the map, secured my gear, started the truck without headlights, and began working my way south toward the ridgeline. The drive took 4 hours because I would not use headlights. The moon was in its last quarter and gave just enough light to follow the gravel by shape if I kept the speed under 15. Twice I stopped to clear fallen limbs. When once I stopped because something moved across the road about 200 yards ahead, a shape that was upright and wrong in its gait in the particular way I had learned to recognize by day 3. I killed the engine and sat in the dark for 20 minutes until I was sure it had moved off into the tree line. The infected in rural areas were less concentrated than what the early broadcasts had described in the cities, but they were also less predictable. A single infected person could be anywhere. A hiker, a utility worker, someone who'd fled a town and turned on the road. You'd find them in places that made no logical sense, standing in a creek bed or sitting against a tree, and then they'd orient on sound or movement, and everything about them would change. I reached the base of the Ridgeline access road just before dawn, and the road was gated, which I expected. What I didn't expect was that the gate was open, not broken, not forced. The padlock was hanging from the chain, unlocked, as if someone with the combination had come through and simply not secured it behind them. The grass was pressed down in 2 tire-width tracks that could have been days old or weeks old. I pulled through, stopped, got out, closed the gate, wrapped the chain, and clicked the padlock shut. If that seems like an odd priority, understand that after 11 days, managing access points was one of the few things that could still keep you alive. Every barrier you closed behind you was a few extra seconds of warning. The road climbed steeply through mixed hardwood forest. I could smell the altitude change, that sharp, clean, may slightly metallic taste that comes above 3,000 feet in the southern Appalachians in early spring. The air was cold enough that my breath showed. I drove slowly, checking the mirrors constantly, out of a habit that had kept me alive more than any weapon had. The relay shelter appeared around a final switchback, and it looked almost exactly as I remembered it. It sat on a cleared pad near the Ridgeline summit, maybe 30 feet below the actual peak. A low concrete rectangle with a flat roof, painted a green that had faded to gray-green. The antenna mast rose from the far end, heavy steel lattice maybe 60 feet, with a full array still intact. A couple of Yagi antennas, a collinear VHF whip, a small microwave relay dish, and a NOAA weather antenna I recognized by its specific radome shape. There was a diesel generator enclosure on the south side, a propane tank on a concrete pad, and a gravel turnaround area where one other vehicle was already parked. A dark green Jeep Cherokee, maybe 10 years old, with a cracked windshield and a CB whip antenna mounted on the roof. The engine was cold when I touched the hood. I parked the truck at the far edge of the turnaround, angled for departure, and sat for 10 full minutes, scanning the site through binoculars. Nothing moved. The shelter door appeared closed. The generator enclosure was shut. And when I looked carefully at the antenna mast, I could see that one of the Yagi antennas had been recently adjusted. The element alignment was slightly different from what I remembered, and there was a fresh cable tie on the feed line where it met the mast junction box. Though someone had been here, someone who knew what they were doing with antennas. I approached the shelter door on a line that kept me close to the tree line until the last 30 feet of open ground. The door was the 3-gauge steel I remembered, set in a reinforced frame anchored into the concrete wall. There was a simplex mechanical push-button cipher lock, and there was a handwritten note taped to the door at eye level, black marker on white cardboard torn from a box. It read, "Shelter active, armed inside. Identify yourself verbally before entry. Knock pattern 212, no exceptions." I stood there reading it twice. The knock pattern was a filter more than a lock. It separated people who could read and follow instructions from those who couldn't. On day 11, that distinction was more meaningful than it sounds. I knocked. 2. Pause. 1. Pause. 2. 30 seconds of nothing. Then a voice through the door. Male, middle-aged, with a specific kind of flat calm I recognized as someone managing fear with procedure. "Who are you, and how did you get the access road combination?" I didn't use a combination. The gate was open when I arrived. I closed it behind me and locked it. A pause. The gate was locked when I came through 3 days ago. It wasn't when I got here. Someone else has been through. Another pause, longer. I could almost hear the calculation happening behind the steel. Then, "What's your background? Why are you here?" "County Comms Maintenance Supervisor. I've been to this site before, about 7 years ago, during an interop exercise. But I picked up your signal on 162.475 and followed the bearing." The silence lasted long enough that I thought he might not respond. Then 3 distinct mechanical actions. 2 more than a standard door, and the door opened inward about 10 inches. A face appeared. White male, maybe mid-50s, wire-rimmed glasses, gray stubble, wearing a fleece pullover and a look that mixed relief with deep suspicion in roughly equal measure. He looked at my hands, my rifle, my tool bag. "You said comms maintenance. Which counties?" I told him. "Do you know what a Type 3 relay shelter is?" "I know what I was told 7 years ago, which wasn't much." He studied me for another few seconds, then opened the door fully. "My name is Warren, Weather Service contractor out of the Greenville-Spartanburg office. Or I was. Get inside. Well, I'll explain the signal." The interior of the relay shelter was exactly the kind of space that civilians imagine is impressive, and that people who work in communications infrastructure recognize as deeply, specifically functional. 1 room, roughly 12 by 18, with a poured concrete floor, block walls, and a suspended ceiling-hiding cable runs. The left wall was dominated by 3 full equipment racks, holding a mix of repeater units, a patch panel, a signal router that looked military surplus, and the commercial NOAA weather radio transmitter I'd followed here. The right wall had a workbench with test equipment, laminated frequency charts and relay maps pinned above it, and 12 deep-cycle batteries on a heavy shelf wired to supply the equipment for extended operation. At the far end, a diesel generator control panel, then a small water tank, a chemical toilet behind a partition, and a narrow cot with a sleeping bag. No second level, no hidden room, no vault. This was not a bunker. It was a relay shelter, a single-purpose communications node, designed to receive signals, amplify them, reroute them, and retransmit them across a coverage area that, based on the maps, encompassed a roughly 60-mile radius of western North Carolina, eastern Tennessee, and the upper tip of South Carolina. The maps had handwritten annotations showing primary relay paths, fallback frequencies, and a network diagram linking this shelter to at least 4 other similar sites. 2 of those sites were marked with red X's and dates, Day 4, Day 7. Those sites were dead. Warren closed and locked the door, all 3 locks, and went to the NOAA transmitter. With the data burst shifted slightly in rhythm. He noticed me noticing. "I change the timing every time someone arrives. If the pattern stays identical too long, it looks automated. I want it to look human." "Why?" "Because automated signals aren't worth investigating. Human signals are." He said this with the matter-of-fact tone of someone who had arrived at a conclusion he didn't enjoy. I understood immediately. He was using the NOAA transmitter as a beacon, not broadcasting voice, not sending a standard alert, but keying a signal just irregular enough to look like a person was behind it. A lure for anyone with the technical knowledge to notice the anomaly on a dead band. He was fishing for people like me. "How many have come?" "You're the second. First was a woman on day 9. She didn't stay." He didn't elaborate, and the way he said it told me not to ask yet. I spent the first hour doing what I always did at an unfamiliar communications site. I traced every cable run, identified every piece of equipment, checked the battery bank voltage, inspected the generator panel, and read the fuel gauge through the interior monitoring system. Warren watched without interruption, and I could tell he recognized the behavior. A technical person watching another technical person do a site assessment. It built trust that conversation alone could not have achieved. The relay shelter had approximately 90 gallons of diesel remaining, enough for about 12 days of continuous operation, or significantly more, with managed charging cycles. The battery bank was in fair condition. 2 cells reading low, probably sulfated from long storage, but the rest holding charge. The equipment suite was more capable than I'd initially appreciated. The main repeater could operate on multiple VHF and UHF frequency pairs. The signal router allowed incoming transmissions on one frequency to be retransmitted on another, meaning the shelter could function as a true relay node, linking stations that couldn't reach each other directly. And there was one more thing. Mounted in the upper right corner of the main equipment rack, connected to the antenna array by a dedicated feed line, was a receiver I did not recognize. No manufacturer markings, a digital frequency display, and a row of channel selector switches. Currently powered on, scanning slowly across the federal interoperability channels. The shared frequencies designated for multi-agency coordination during major disasters. That's been active since I got here, Warren said. It was on when I arrived. The shelter was sealed, the generator was running, and that receiver was scanning. Everything else was in standby. Someone set it up and left. Someone set it up and sealed the door. Based on the generator runtime meter, the system was started around day 3 or 4. I watched the receiver scan silently through the federal channels. Every few seconds it paused on a frequency, listened for a carrier signal, moved on. Patiently, mechanically, without judgment, it was searching for a voice on channels that were supposed to be the last line of coordinated emergency communication in the region. Warren had been keeping a log. In 3 days, the receiver had found voices on 4 occasions. 3 were brief, broken, and consistent with portable radios at extreme range. Fragments of words, unrecognized call signs, then silence. One on the evening of day 9 was clear and sustained for nearly 2 minutes. A male voice identifying as a county emergency management team in Haywood County, roughly 40 miles west, requesting relay assistance to reach a FEMA coordination frequency. Warren had gotten through to him, relayed the request to the specified FEMA frequency. No response. Tried twice more. Nothing. He'd gone back and told the man honestly that the relay was operational, but the destination frequency was dead. The man's voice had changed, Warren said, not panicked, just the sound of someone absorbing the confirmation of something he'd already suspected. That was the last transmission from Haywood County. So the shelter works, I said. No, the relay works. We can link people. But there may be no one on the other end to link them to. Warren took off his glasses and cleaned them with the hem of his fleece. The shelter works exactly as designed. It receives, it amplifies, it retransmits. It can bridge frequencies that can't reach each other. It is doing precisely what it was built to do. But the network it was built to serve is gone. Most of it. He pointed at the red X's on the map. But there are 2 more sites in the network I haven't been able to verify either way. One in Unicoi County, Tennessee. One somewhere in the Nantahala area. And the federal channels. The receiver keeps scanning. It finds fragments, but nothing that sounds like organized coordination. I asked about the woman who'd left. Warren put his glasses back on. She was a hiker, young, not surviving in the woods since day 2. Found the site by following the access road looking for high ground. No radio knowledge. She wanted physical safety, food, a group. I told her what this place was. A relay station, not a refuge. She looked at the cot and the chemical toilet and the concrete walls and said this wasn't shelter. It was a coffin with an antenna. She left the next morning heading north. A coffin with an antenna. She wasn't wrong, exactly. She was just measuring the wrong thing. We settled into a working rhythm over the next 2 days. Warren handled monitoring and logging. I handled infrastructure, checking battery levels, running the generator on a managed charge cycle, inspecting the antenna feed lines, clearing the generator exhaust vent. We split watches, 4 hours on and 4 off, which was brutal on sleep, but sustainable short-term. We ate sparingly from combined supplies. Together we had maybe 6 days of food if we were disciplined, which we were. On the second night, the Federal Interoperability Receiver caught something that changed everything. I was on watch, half listening to the scanner cycle through its channels, when the receiver stopped on a frequency and held. A carrier signal. Then a voice, clear, female, professional in cadence, reading what sounded like a formatted message. Relay Node 7. This is Regional Coordination, Knoxville. Requesting status check on all Type 3 shelters in the Southern Appalachian sector. If any station is monitoring, respond on this frequency with your site designation and operational status. Repeating. My hand was on the transmit switch before I'd fully processed what I'd heard. I stopped myself. I went and woke Warren. He listened to 2 full cycles, face unreadable. Then he sat down at the console and did something I hadn't expected. He didn't respond. He pulled a reference binder from under the workbench, thick, 3-ring, faded DHS seal on the cover, and flipped through laminated pages until he found what he was looking for. He ran his finger down a list, cross-referencing, and looked at the frequency display. The frequency is right. The format is right. Regional Coordination, Knoxville, is a valid designator for the FEMA region for Backup Coordination Center. So we respond. The message is asking for site designation. This shelter's designation is in this binder. If I respond with it, and I'm confirming to whoever is listening that this site is active, occupied, and capable of relay operations. Isn't that the point? Isn't that what you've been waiting for? Warren looked at me, and for the first time I saw something behind his procedural calm that was not calm at all. I've been waiting for a real coordination signal, and this might be one. But it might also be someone who found a radio and a call script in an overrun FEMA office and is broadcasting to locate active infrastructure. He let that settle. On day 6, he continued, I monitored a transmission on a county sheriff's frequency. Someone identified themselves as a deputy and requested backup at a specific address. Voice was calm, professional, used correct 10 codes. 2 hours later, at least someone else came on the same frequency and said they'd responded to that call and found an ambush. 6 infected in the house, no deputy. Just a radio propped on a table next to a body. I looked at the receiver. The message was still cycling. The woman's voice was steady, professional, and completely devoid of any quality that would let me distinguish it from genuine FEMA coordination or a well-crafted imitation. We listen, Warren said. We don't respond yet. We log the frequency, the timing, the content. We see if it changes 24 hours. Every instinct I had as a communications professional said that when a coordination center calls, you answer. That's the whole point of the system, That's why the relay shelter existed. Not answering felt like a betrayal of everything the infrastructure was built for. But Warren's logic was sound. And the part of me that wanted to respond immediately was the same part that had driven me toward the signal on 162.475. The part that needed the system to still work. That part was not rational. It was faithful, and faith was a dangerous basis for operational decisions on day 11. We listened, we didn't respond, we logged. Over the next 18 hours, the message repeated every 30 minutes. Same voice, same content, same frequency, no variation, metronomically consistent, which could mean either a disciplined operation or an automated playback. At hour 16, I caught something, the recording. And by now, I was fairly sure it was a recording, because the breath patterns were identical each cycle. Had a faint background artifact, a low hum, barely perceptible, when I ran it through the shelter's equipment at higher gain. The hum was electrical, 60 cycle. Clean 60 cycle, not generator derived, because generator power in small units typically runs slightly off 60 Hz due to governor imprecision. Clean 60 cycle hum on day 11 meant either the source had access to a functioning commercial power grid, extraordinary, likely indicating a genuinely intact facility, or the recording had been made before the grid went down and was being played back through a battery-powered transmitter. Warren asked if I could determine the bearing. I could, in theory. If I reconfigured the Yagi antenna to receive on the coordination frequency and took signal strength readings at multiple rotational positions, I could triangulate a rough direction, not distance, direction. Well, how long? I'd have to go up the mast, maybe an hour, including readings. Outside, on the mast, visible. Yes. We both looked at the door, the relay shelter's greatest asset, its ridgeline position, chosen for maximum coverage, was also its greatest vulnerability as a hiding place. The cleared area, the access road, the mast itself were all visible from the surrounding forest. Tools on steel would carry in the mountain air. After dark, I said, red headlamp. Can you climb a 60-foot mast in the dark? I've climbed masts in worse conditions than dark. That was true. It was also true that I'd done it younger, better rested, and not on 4 cumulative hours of sleep per night for 11 days. But I didn't mention that. We spent the remaining daylight hours in the most difficult operational discussion I'd had since the outbreak. What would we do if the bearing pointed somewhere plausible? Would we transmit? Would we identify the shelter? Warren articulated the central problem more precisely than I could have. The shelter is most valuable when it's transmitting, and it's most safe when it's silent. Those two states are mutually exclusive, and every decision we make from here is about where we set the balance between them. I climbed the mast at 9:15, clear night, maybe 34 degrees, steady wind out of the northwest that cut through my jacket and made the steel lattice painfully cold, even through work gloves. I climbed with a red headlamp, a wrench, and a handheld radio connected to Warren below. Now my forearms were shaking by the time I reached the Yagi Junction at 50 feet. From that height, the view stopped me. The ridgeline fell away in every direction into darkness that was almost total. In normal times, you'd see the glow of towns, highway lights, the scattered points of rural homes. I saw almost nothing. One faint cluster to the northwest that might have been a fire. One moving light far to the south, too slow for a vehicle. And everywhere else, darkness of a quality that modern Americans almost never experience. The darkness of a landscape without electricity, without infrastructure, without the constant low-level luminance of civilization. I adjusted the Yagi, took readings at 4 positions, calculated the bearing on the back of my hand with a grease pencil. Roughly southeast, 140 degrees, and give or take 5. Southeast at 140 puts it in the direction of Asheville, Warren said, or past Asheville. Asheville, largest city in the region, population roughly 90,000 metro. The city that every radio fragment in the first week had described as completely overrun by day 4. The city the last National Guard broadcast had designated a no-entry zone with no further explanation. I descended faster than was safe. Warren had already marked the bearing on the map. The line passed through the eastern outskirts of Asheville and continued into the ridgelines beyond. Could be anywhere along that line, I said, but a FEMA Region 4 Backup Coordination Center would logically be near a major regional population center, and Asheville had federal facilities. Hardened facilities survive even when their surroundings don't. But that's their entire purpose. He was right. And the part of me I'd been trying to keep leashed heard his words and pulled harder. We agreed to wait until morning. I took the first watch. Warren was asleep in minutes. At 2:17 in the morning, the relay equipment received a new signal. Not the coordination message, a different frequency, 146.520, the national simplex calling frequency for ham radio. The voice was male, older, and it was not calm. Anyone on this frequency? This is a group of 9 at the Cane River Middle School in Yancey County. We have the building secured, but we have injured and we are hearing movement outside the perimeter after dark. We have no vehicle. We need someone to relay our position to anyone who can send one. We have children here. Please respond. The message repeated twice, then went silent, while the handheld scanner on the workbench confirmed the signal. Real, local. The strength suggested a source within 15 to 20 miles, and a direct, unambiguous request for relay assistance. This was the exact scenario the relay shelter was designed for. I woke Warren. He listened, checked the log, confirmed the frequency. Then he sat at the console and put his hand on the transmit switch and left it there without pressing it. If we respond, we confirm on an open frequency that this shelter is active and monitored. Anyone on 146.520 will hear us. If we don't respond, 9 people, including children, have no relay and no vehicle. I know. Warren, I know. He pressed the switch. Station calling on 146.520. This is a relay station in Avery County. We copy your transmission. State your exact location and situation. Over. The response came in 11 seconds, and the relief in the man's voice was physical. A tangible loosening that carried through the speaker like heat. His name was George, retired teacher. He'd been coordinating a small group of survivors since day 3. They'd reached the school 2 days ago because it was brick with limited entry points and windowless interior rooms. But they had no transportation, and nighttime activity around the perimeter was increasing. At least 4 distinct infected in the tree line the previous night. Food for 3 days, water failing. Warren asked assessment questions drawn from an emergency management framework. Injuries, children, ages, supplies, weapons, communications. George answered methodically. 2 injured, 1 adult with a badly infected laceration, 1 child with a likely broken ankle. Be 3 children, ages 6, 8, 12. Supplies from the cafeteria, no weapons beyond improvised tools. One amateur radio running on a solar-charged battery, 9 people, 2 injured, 3 children, no vehicle, declining water, 17 miles away. Warren ended the contact with instructions to monitor the frequency. Then he turned off the transmit switch and looked at me. "We have 2 vehicles," I said. "That's not a plan. That's an inventory." "It's the beginning of a plan." "A plan to do what? Drive 17 miles to a school already being surrounded, load 9 people, including children and injured, and bring them where? Here? This shelter holds 2 people uncomfortably. It has no medical supplies. Food for 6 days for 2 of us, which means 36 hours for 11. It has communications. It has walls. It has a generator. It has a purpose, and that purpose is relay, not refuge. If we fill it with 9 people, it stops being a relay station and becomes a box. A concrete box on a ridgeline with an antenna that tells everyone with a receiver exactly where we are." He was right. Every operational fact was accurate. The shelter was not designed to house survivors. Bringing people here would compromise its function and consume the resources needed to maintain it. But I kept hearing George's voice, the retired teacher on a radio at 2 in the morning with the voice of someone who understood this might be his last option. "If we don't help them," I said, "what are we relaying? Well, what's the point of a relay station in a dead network with no one to relay for?" Warren fought the same war I was fighting, between what the system was designed to do and what it needed to do now that the design assumptions had collapsed. "I'll go," I said. "You stay. I'll take the Jeep, assess the school, and make a decision on the ground. If extraction works, I bring them to the base of the ridgeline, not up here. Secondary position at the gate. You continue relay operations." Warren considered this. "Route 19E passes through populated areas. You'll be driving at night. Better at night. If you encounter a blockage, you're alone. I'm aware. And if the school is already overrun, then I come back and we log it." That sentence sat in the room like something cold. Log it. Now reduce 9 lives to a notation in a spiral notebook. But it was honest, and Warren respected honest more than he respected comfortable. "Take the Jeep," he said. "Your truck has more capacity for the return. The Jeep is more maneuverable, and if it's lost, you're not stranded." He handed me a printed frequency list, a handheld radio programmed with 3 channels, and his sidearm, a Smith & Wesson revolver with 12 extra rounds. I didn't want to take his only weapon, but he pointed out that the shelter door had 3 locks, and he had no intention of opening it for anyone without the knock pattern. The drive down the ridgeline was the most focused piece of driving I had ever done. No headlights, no moon, just starlight through bare canopy and the feel of gravel under tires. At the gate I stopped, unlocked, drove through, and relocked. Then the Forest Service road, heading east. The drive should have taken 30 minutes. It took an hour 40. Route 19E was passable but littered with abandoned vehicles, some blocking lanes, some pushed aside by something heavy. I threaded between wrecks with inches on each side. Twice I saw figures at the roadside, once sitting against a guardrail, once standing in a driveway, and both times I maintained speed and course. In the dark, at a distance, I could not distinguish infected from survivor, and stopping to find out was not a risk the math supported. I reached the school at 5:12, just before first light. Single-story brick, set back from the road on a slight rise. Parking lot in front, fenced athletic area behind. I parked the Jeep 100 yards away, behind a closed gas station, and approached on foot. The building looked intact. No broken windows. The main entrance had furniture stacked behind the glass. I circled the east side, staying in the tree line. The fenced area was chained shut. Nothing moved. A single small light in one interior window. A flashlight or candle. The kind of light people use when they're trying to stay awake and stay quiet at the same time. I keyed the handheld. "George, this is the relay station contact. I'm outside the east side, approaching the east entrance. Single male, carrying a rifle. Do not fire. 10 seconds. Then George's voice, barely above a whisper. Copy. Sending someone to the east door. His name is Marcus. He'll flash a light twice." A door cracked open. A light flashed twice, and I crossed the open ground at a controlled pace. A man's hand grabbed my jacket and pulled me through. And I was inside a school hallway that smelled like sweat, canned food, disinfectant, and fear. 9 people. George was exactly what his voice had suggested. Mid-60s, lean, white beard, deliberate movements. Marcus was large, 30s, physical labor build, hadn't slept properly in a week. A young couple, Tyler and Sarah, with 2 daughters, Lily and Rose, 6 and 8, asleep on a mat in the corner, curled together. An older woman named Patricia with diabetes, rationing her last insulin pens. A man named Hector, who said almost nothing and watched everything, with a wound on his forearm that was swollen, red-streaked, seeping through a bandage that needed changing. And Marcus's son, James, 12, with a broken ankle in an improvised splint. I told them the situation plainly. 1 vehicle, a relay shelter that was a communications node, not a full shelter, limited resources, exposed position, but operational, connected, and the only functioning piece of emergency infrastructure I'd found in 11 days. The alternative was the school, with its deteriorating perimeter and its 3 days of food. George asked the question I expected. Can you relay a message to anyone who can actually help us? I thought about the coordination message from the direction of Asheville. Warren's caution, Patricia's insulin, 2 little girls asleep in a school library, the distance between protocol and necessity. There may be a coordination center still active. We've been monitoring a signal. Unconfirmed. Responding identifies our relay station to anyone listening. But it may be the only organized response still functioning in this region. George looked at me steadily. What does your gut say? My gut isn't qualified. The signal is technically consistent with a real FEMA operation, but it could be a recording. So the choice is between definitely dying here and possibly connecting with help if we take the risk. That's approximately it. George looked around the room at his people, then back at me. Take the risk. I radioed Warren. His silence lasted 5 full seconds. Then he said something I've thought about every day since. If we transmit to that coordination frequency, we become the loudest point on the map. Every receiver in range will know this shelter is active. We may save these people, or we may lose the last working relay in the region. Both outcomes are possible. Or both are permanent. Understood. Then make it count. The extraction took 2 runs in the early morning half-light, dark enough for concealment, light enough to move with children and injured. First load, George, Patricia, Tyler, and the 2 girls, to a staging point at the base of the Ridgeline Access Road. Second run, Marcus carrying James, Dee, Sarah, and Hector. Each round trip was 90 minutes that felt like 90 hours. Every abandoned car, every shadow, every stretch of road where the trees pressed close was a calculation at speed, with stakes I couldn't afford to think about. Both trips made it without incident. No incident meant no contact with infected, no roadblock, and no ambush. It meant lucky, which was the new word for normal. We established a camp at the staging point, flat ground just inside the tree line, then a quarter-mile from the ridgeline gate. The road provided a single approach vector. The terrain on either side was steep enough to slow anything approaching through the woods. Not a fortress, a place. I hiked up to the shelter and found Warren at the console. He looked at me and said, the coordination message changed. Something in his voice made me sit down. Same voice, same frequency, but additional content. It's now requesting that any active relay stations identify their operational capability and survivor count within their communication range. Survivor count. A coordination center gathering situational awareness would want that. It was exactly the kind of progression you'd expect from a genuine operation scaling up. It was also exactly the information someone hunting for populated relay sites would want. But while you were gone, Warren said, the receiver picked up a response. Not us, someone else. Another station identified themselves as the Type 3 relay shelter in Unicoi County. I stared at him. Unicoi County was one of our unverified network sites. They gave their designation, operational status, and an estimated survivor count of 31. The coordination center acknowledged, requested they maintain relay operations, and said to prepare for possible asset deployment within 72 hours. Asset deployment, vehicles, personnel, supplies, organized response. Another relay station responded, Warren said, using the correct designation for a Type 3 shelter in the correct location. That's either a genuine network coming back online, or it's the most sophisticated trap in the history of radio. Below us, the 9 new people were setting up a camp that depended on decisions we hadn't finished making. Patricia needed insulin. Hector's arm was tracking red past his elbow. 2 children were sleeping in a forest because a school wasn't safe anymore. And a voice on the radio was asking us to identify ourselves, and another station had already answered, and silence was also an answer. Warren took off his glasses. Without them, he looked older and less certain, which was the same thing. I'm going to respond, he said. I'm going to identify this shelter, report our status, and request medical assistance. Once I do this, we cannot undo it. The signal is out. Every consequence that follows starts here. I understand. And I need you to understand that I don't know if this is the right decision. I know it's the necessary one. Well, because the alternative is watching people die while a relay station sits silent, doing nothing that a switched-off radio couldn't do equally well. But necessary and right are not always the same thing. Transmit. Warren put his glasses on, squared himself to the console, and keyed the switch. Regional Coordination Knoxville. This is Type 3 Relay Shelter. He read the designation from the binder. Avery County, North Carolina. We are operational. 2 technical staff. 9 additional survivors in our immediate area, including 3 children, 1 diabetic adult requiring insulin, and 1 adult with a serious wound infection requiring antibiotics. We are capable of full relay operations across the Southern Appalachian Corridor. Requesting medical resupply and evacuation assessment. Over. The transmission left the antenna 60 feet above us and spread across the ridgeline in a sphere of radio energy, reaching into valleys and over mountains, touching every receiver in range with the fact of our existence, our location, our vulnerability, and our need. 22 seconds of silence. Then the voice, the same female voice. But not a recording this time. The cadence was different, responsive, alive. Type 3 Shelter, Avery County. This is Regional Coordination Knoxville. We copy your status. Good to hear you. Stand by for coordination. Warren's hand trembled slightly on the console. He didn't look at me. He didn't need to. Over the next 4 hours, the coordination center, and by now I was increasingly certain it was genuine, because the operator demonstrated knowledge of relay protocols and site-specific details that would be nearly impossible to fake, began integrating our shelter into what they described as an emerging regional network. 2 other relay stations were active, Unicoi County and a third site that had come online that morning in the Nantahala forest. Together, the 3 sites formed a relay backbone covering most of western North Carolina and eastern Tennessee. The system worked. Signal quality was strong. Coverage overlap meant most of the mountain region was within reach. For the first time in 11 days, there was a functional communication network in the southern Appalachians. The coordinator began routing survivor contacts through us. Over those 4 hours, we relayed 11 transmissions from 6 different groups. An estimated 67 survivors across the region. Locations, conditions, needs, capabilities, all of it passing through our equipment, our antenna, our power supply. The shelter was doing exactly what it was built to do. And every transmission made us more visible, more valuable, and more vulnerable in exact and inseparable proportion. The first sign of trouble came the following afternoon. I was at the camp when Warren radioed a single word. Problem. I hiked up. Warren was pointing at the signal router's monitoring display. New signal on our relay output frequency. Someone is listening to our traffic. And 30 minutes ago, they started transmitting on the same frequency, not to us, just a carrier. Keying up for 3 seconds, then releasing, every few minutes. In radio terminology, that ker-chunking. Keying a transmitter without speaking to test whether you can reach a system without identifying yourself. Harmless in normal times, terrifying now. Based on signal strength, they're within a few miles, mobile or portable unit. A few miles. We were on a ridgeline with a single-access road and 9 people in a camp and an antenna that broadcast our existence in every direction. Warren had contacted the coordination center. Their response: monitor, do not engage, continue operations. Then they added something that lodged in my chest. Be advised, relay stations are high-value targets in the current environment. Maintain security posture. Maintain security posture. 2 middle-aged men with 3 firearms, responsible for 9 civilians, operating a shelter with a 60-foot antenna, and someone unknown probing our frequency from a few miles out. I went down and told Marcus. His expression didn't change, but his body did. A subtle shift, a squaring of shoulders. We repositioned the vehicles to block the access road at a narrow point, established overlapping watch positions, moved the children and injured under a rock overhang, set noise discipline, no unnecessary conversation above a whisper, no light after dark. That night, monitoring 3 frequencies with a single earpiece, I heard the access road gate rattle, faint, metal on metal, barely audible over the wind. I keyed the radio twice without speaking, our prearranged alert, and Marcus materialized beside me. We listened, nothing more from the gate, no engine, no footsteps, yet just the wind and the enormous silence of a mountain night. After 30 minutes, I moved to where I could see the gate through binoculars, closed, chain intact. But on the ground outside, in the faint starlight, what might have been footprints in the mud, or might have been shadows. I wasn't going to open the gate to check. Everything was still, Everything was watching. The next 2 days compressed into equal parts routine and slow-building dread. Warren and I maintained relay operations, routing increasing traffic as more survivor groups made contact. The coordination center was assembling a regional recovery framework, vehicle assets moving from staging areas, medical supplies being routed, a timeline that kept slipping but existed. The unknown signal returned on the second day. This time, the person spoke. A single transmission, the voice distorted. 4 words. "We know you're there." Warren logged it. I logged it. Neither of us responded. The coordination center's guidance remained the same. Monitor, do not engage, continue operations. But the shelter was no longer just a relay station. It was a known position. Someone had taken the trouble to tell us so. Patricia's insulin reached critical level on the 3rd day. She told me privately, with the calm of someone who understood the math. 2 pens left, 4 days at current dosing. Without resupply, her condition would deteriorate in ways that were predictable, manageable to a point, and then not. Hector's arm was worse. Red streaks past the elbow, holding the limb stiffly against his body. Without antibiotics, the infection would go systemic. I relayed this to the coordination center with a factual urgency I controlled carefully. The coordinator acknowledged. Medical assets were in transit but delayed by road conditions and infected activity. She said she understood. She said to maintain. The word that holds everything and promises nothing. On the evening of day 15, the coordination center transmitted a message that made Warren grab my arm. "All active relay stations, be advised. Ground convoy designated Sierra 3 is en route from staging area in Greenville, Tennessee. 4 vehicles, including 1 medical unit. Estimated arrival at Avery County Relay Shelter, 18 to 24 hours. Provide recommended approach route and hazard information." Warren responded with route details, road conditions, camp location. His voice did not shake, which was an achievement I respected because mine would have. I went down and told the camp. George closed his eyes for a moment. Marcus nodded once. Patricia said, "That's good," in a voice carefully calibrated to express neither too much hope nor too little. The children were asleep. That night the unknown signal came back, not on our relay frequency, on 146.520. The distortion was gone. "Relay station, you've been broadcasting for 4 days. We've been listening. We're not your enemy. We're 12 people in a church on Route 19E, about 8 miles from your position. We didn't know if you were real until now. Can you relay for us? Can you include us?" Warren and I listened to it twice. 8 miles on 19E placed them near a cluster of churches between Burnsville and the Ridgeline Road. Plausible. But these were the people who'd been probing our frequency, who'd sent, "We know you're there," whose presence near our gate I might have detected in the dark. They'd been watching, and now they were asking for help. Was the earlier behavior reconnaissance or fear? Was the distortion a tactical choice or a bad radio? I thought about the deputy on the sheriff's frequency, the calm voice reading 10 codes from a house full of infected. I thought about George transmitting from a school library with nothing to protect him but his honesty. I couldn't tell the difference. There was no test, no protocol, no frequency analysis that could distinguish between a survivor asking for help and a threat disguised as one. This was the fundamental problem of communication in a collapsed trust environment. The channel was the same, the format was the same, and the only variable was intention, which radio cannot transmit. Warren made the call. He responded. He asked for details. The voice, clearer now, a man maybe in his 40s, gave specifics that were consistent. 12 people, locals and travelers, sheltering since day 7, limited supplies, 2 elderly, no children. "We were afraid you might be a trap," the man said, and the irony of that in the context of my own suspicions was not lost on me. Warren relayed their information to the coordination center. The coordinator acknowledged and updated the convoy's tasking. I did not sleep that night. I lay at the edge of camp with the rifle across my chest, listening to the mountain breathe, thinking about all the voices that had passed through the relay shelter. Everyone had traveled as radio waves, all passed through our antenna, been amplified by our equipment, and retransmitted from our mast. Every connection was also a thread that could be traced back to this ridgeline, this mast, this cleared pad, where we waited for a convoy moving through uncertain territory on a timeline that kept narrowing. The relay shelter had made us essential and exposed in exact proportion to each other. There was no configuration of those 2 variables that resolved into safety. Dawn came cold and clear on day 16. At 8:17, the coordination center transmitted. Sierra 3 reports position on Interstate 26, approximately 40 miles out. Road conditions slowing progress. Revised ETA, 6 to 10 hours. 6 to 10 hours. I ran the math against Patricia's insulin, Hector's arm, our food, and the unknown variables of who else was listening. The math worked, barely, and only if nothing else went wrong. At 11:40, Marcus radioed from the camp. His voice was controlled whisper managing adrenaline. Movement on the access road below the gate, multiple figures, on foot, coming up. I grabbed the rifle and binoculars and moved to a position where I could see the lower road through a gap in the trees. 4 figures moving uphill. On the road, not in the woods, carrying packs. One had a radio antenna visible above a backpack. "Could be the church group," I radioed Warren. "They said 8 miles, no vehicle. Walking time puts them here about now, and the coordinator may have told them to consolidate at our position." Warren confirmed it. The coordination center had transmitted guidance for the church group to move to our location. He'd found it in his log, but I went down to the gate. They arrived 10 minutes later, 4 men, breathing hard from the climb. The one in front was the voice from the radio. His name was Dale, a plumber. He introduced the others, his brother, a friend, a man they'd found on the road. 2 armed men studying each other through a chain-link gate on a mountain road, calculating trust in a world where trust was the most expensive currency left. "The convoy," Dale said. "The coordinator said it was coming here. She said we should consolidate." I opened the gate. They came through. I closed and locked it behind them. 23 people on a ridgeline now, waiting for a convoy, with a relay shelter broadcasting our existence to the entire region. The afternoon passed in suspended waiting. I stayed at the shelter with Warren, monitoring. The coordination center provided updates. Past the Route 19 interchange, navigating debris, 30 miles, 20. At 4:40, the relay receiver caught a new transmission on the federal channel, not the coordination center. A voice I hadn't heard. Male, clipped, military cadence. "Any station this net. We have visual on the Avery County relay site. We are Sierra 3 lead vehicle. Request ground contact for final coordination." Warren confirmed their identity with a code the coordination center had provided. I ran to the camp, told everyone, went to the gate and opened it for the last time. 4 vehicles came up the access road, 2 modified SUVs, a cargo truck, and a vehicle with a red cross on the door. though they moved with the careful professionalism of people who had been navigating dangerous territory and were not yet ready to relax. The lead vehicle stopped. A man in civilian clothes with military bearing got out and looked at me. The gate, the road, the antenna mast against the sky. "You're the relay operator?" "One of them." "How many total?" 23. 3 children, 1 diabetic needing insulin, 1 with a wound infection. He nodded, unsurprised, because the relay network had already given him all of this. That was the point. That was the entire point of everything Warren and I had done. So that when help arrived, it arrived informed, because someone had been transmitting and someone had kept the relay alive. The medical unit went to work immediately. Patricia received insulin and a blood glucose assessment that made the medic's face tighten in a way that told me we'd been closer to the edge than she'd let on. Hector was started on IV antibiotics, and the relief on his face, not dramatic, just a loosening of something held too long, was the most human thing I'd seen in 16 days. James's ankle was properly splinted. The children were given food that wasn't from a can, and Lily ate a granola bar with an intensity of focus that was quietly devastating. The convoy leader, Garrett, came up to the relay shelter with me and Warren. He stood in the doorway and looked at the equipment, the maps, the logs, the batteries, Warren's meticulous notebook. Yeah, he looked at it the way I'd looked at the signal on 162.475, with recognition of something still working in a world where working had become rare. This station relayed contact for 67 confirmed survivors across 3 states. Your relay traffic is the reason we were able to route this convoy. Warren said the shelter did what it was designed to do. Garrett left a support team with fuel, supplies, medical provisions, and 2 armed security personnel who took positions along the access road with quiet professionalism. The convoy would take the injured and most vulnerable to a consolidated survivor area near Greenville. The rest could stay as part of the relay site's support community. George chose to stay. Marcus chose to stay. Dale chose to stay. But they chose to stay because the ridgeline had become something more than a hiding place. A node in a network that connected people across a broken landscape. I watched the convoy leave with the children and the injured. Then I went back to the shelter. Warren was at the console. The relay equipment hummed. The receiver scanned the federal channels. The antenna caught signals from across the mountains, fed them through our systems, and sent them back out. Garrett had said something before he left that I hadn't fully absorbed until now. He'd said the coordination center had detected a pattern in their regional monitoring, a correlation between active relay sites and the movement of organized hostile groups, not infected, people. Groups that had learned to track relay transmissions, triangulate shelter positions, and move toward them. Not for communication, for resources. 2 relay sites in other regions had gone dark in the past week, under circumstances that suggested coordinated assault. The equipment had been taken. The operators had not been found. He'd told us this calmly, the way you deliver a technical briefing, and then he'd said, "You're one of 3 active nodes. The network depends on you. But the network is also what's drawing attention to you. We can provide limited security, but we can't guarantee this site's safety as long as it's transmitting." He'd paused and then, "That said, if you stop transmitting, the network collapses and everyone we've connected goes silent again." He didn't ask us what we wanted to do. He didn't have to. The shelter was still transmitting. We were still visible. Now the network was fragile and partial, and dependent on 3 small concrete rooms on 3 ridge lines, staffed by people who were tired and frightened and doing it anyway. The roads were still dangerous. The infected were still out there. And now, there were others, organized, purposeful, following our signal the way I had followed the beacon on 162.475. Except they were not coming to help maintain the system. They were coming to take it. Warren looked up from the console. The Nantahala station is requesting a relay test on a new frequency pair. They want to extend coverage into the Smokies. I sat down in the folding chair and put on the headphones. Through the wall, I could hear the wind moving across the ridgeline. The antenna hummed with it, resonant and alive, carrying voices that were not ours to places we might never see. But each transmission was a lifeline and a beacon. Each signal we sent out was a hand extended into the dark, and every hand extended could be grabbed by anyone, and we would not know who was reaching back until they arrived. I reached for the transmit switch. "Ready when they are," I said. The relay held, the signal carried, and somewhere out there, in the dark beyond the range of our instruments, but not beyond the reach of our transmissions, someone was listening and moving and getting closer, and we could not stop them without stopping everything. Do you think they made the right call, keeping the relay active? Or did they doom themselves? Drop your answer below. I read everything.